Your mind tricks you into believing that if the date was amazing, if she laughed at your jokes, if you paid for dinner at a nice place, and if you shared a kiss before saying goodbye, then you've already won the game. You go home mentally adding up points in an imaginary scorebook, convinced that her interest is measured by how much fun you had together in that moment. And that is exactly why so many men wake up the next day to a cold message, unexpected distance they can't explain, or a sudden, "I need some time," right when they thought everything was going perfectly. You monitor every second you're with her. You carefully choose your words and do everything you can to avoid making mistakes while she's in front of you. Yet somehow, the connection slips through your fingers. Why? Because you're obsessed with making an immediate impression, and you have no idea what happens when she's alone. If you keep believing the lie that love is built only through being present, you'll continue smothering the interest of the women you like, building relationships on thin ice, and wondering why all your efforts collapse for no apparent reason. Stay with this video for the next 25 minutes, because today you're going to go beyond the obvious and discover how a woman's heart and mind really work. By the end of this journey, you'll not only understand the major mistake you've been making, but you'll also receive the exact key to decoding her interest, allowing you to handle silence and distance with a confidence that no longer depends on her validating you every second. There is a profound truth that neurologist and psychiatrist Viktor Frankl often pointed out when analyzing human desires. Whatever we pursue with excessive desperation is, by the natural order of things, the very thing we end up driving away first. In the world of attraction, this creates a complete blind spot for men. The average man assumes that falling in love works like flipping a light switch. If you're physically attractive, confident, wealthy, or you give her a fun afternoon, the switch instantly turns on. But everyday reality keeps proving otherwise. How many times have you seen a woman lose interest in a man who seemed to have everything, the perfect candidate? How many times have you felt that even after sharing an incredible afternoon together, her energy completely changed the next day, making her seem as distant as if you had to start all over again? That's where a man's mind begins to break. A deep discomfort sets in, a mental ache that pushes you to replay every conversation, searching for the mistake. Did I say something wrong? I should have taken her somewhere else. You search for the error in what you did or said while you were together, completely overlooking the fact that the real verdict isn't decided under the lights of the date. It's decided in the quiet of her room, after you've already gone home. That anxiety that eats away at you while you wait for your phone screen to light up with a message from her is a symptom of looking for answers in the wrong place. The thinker, Zygmunt Bauman, while studying how human connections are formed, suggested that relationships don't become strong because of what we experience in the moment, but because of the way we process those experiences afterward. Physical attraction and the laughter at the beginning are only the doorway. They are automatic reactions to what's right in front of her. But the bridge that takes someone from simple attraction to deep love isn't built during the minutes you spend together. It's built by the impression you leave behind after you're gone. Think about the patterns that quietly repeat themselves behind the scenes. A woman can spend an amazing evening with a man who does everything possible to impress her. She may admire the way he dresses or how well he speaks, but the moment she returns to her routine the next morning, his image fades from her mind without leaving a trace. Like a television commercial you forget 5 seconds later. With someone else, however, maybe after a date that was less luxurious, simpler, or even a little awkward, her mind keeps returning to him over and over again without her even trying. She remembers a small detail, a meaningful pause, or the warmth of a look that made her feel truly heard. Something continues to resonate inside her. It's a silent accumulation, an invisible puzzle where every conversation is not a final test proving you've either won her over or failed. Instead, each interaction leaves behind a small emotional imprint that settles deep in her mind. When she's alone in the quiet of her room, driving to work, or listening to a random song, her memory isn't calculating how much money you spent or how perfect you were. What comes to mind is the answer to a question she'll probably never ask you out loud, yet it determines everything. How do I feel about myself when I'm with him? If the time you shared was marked by genuine attention, and if you were authentic instead of playing a role, her mind will begin connecting those dots while you're absent. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard explained that memory is the only true possession we have because the present slips through our fingers in an instant. In a woman's psychology, this is where love truly begins to breathe. Your presence grows larger in her mind precisely because you're no longer physically there, leaving behind a space that her own thoughts and desire to see you again naturally begin to fill. That space you leave after you walk away isn't empty. It's the fertile ground where genuine interest either takes root or withers away forever. Many men believe that distance is dangerous, that it's the enemy that will make her forget them. So they make the desperate mistake of trying to fill every hour with text messages, memes, or meaningless questions just to force themselves to stay on her mind. What they don't realize is that by doing this, they're interrupting the natural process of emotional processing. It's like planting a seed and digging it up every 5 minutes to check whether it has started growing. Psychologist Carl Jung explained that the human unconscious communicates through symbols and feelings that need time and stillness to settle into the mind. When you overwhelm a woman with your digital presence right after a date, you leave her no room to miss you. You don't give her the chance to replay the experience in her mind. Physical attraction happens instantly, yes, but falling in love is slow. It unfolds at a completely different pace. She may find you very attractive on the first date, but that doesn't mean a real emotional bond already exists. Mistaking attraction for love is why so many men rush forward when they should be learning to slow down, assuming that an initial "I like you" guarantees lasting interest. The reality is that, for many women, falling in love is built like a brick wall, one brick at a time, quietly and almost imperceptibly. Every time you speak honestly, every time you share a meaningful glance, every time you respond with calm instead of reacting from insecurity, you're laying another brick. No single moment feels like the one that changes everything. One conversation alone won't make her fall head over heels for you, but the accumulation of all those moments gradually builds a solid structure in her mind. At first, they seem like isolated memories, but as the days pass, those emotional impressions begin connecting with one another until, suddenly, something clicks inside her. At that exact moment, everything changes. She no longer enjoys your company only when you see each other on weekends. She begins to feel your presence throughout her everyday life, even when miles separate you. Your name is no longer just the name of a guy she's dating. It becomes a recurring thought that makes her smile in the middle of a dull afternoon at work. But for those emotional impressions to connect, they need the glue of time apart, that space where she processes what she's feeling, where the echo of your personality continues to resonate even after you've left. It's in that absence that the real magic exists, the kind that no cheap seduction trick can ever teach you. The biggest difference between the man who simply attracts and the man who inspires deeper feeling lies in what happens after they say goodbye. The man who only wants to impress leaves behind the feeling of a spectacular show, like fireworks that shine brilliantly but last only a few seconds. She has fun, but once she gets home, the silence of her room completely extinguishes the effect. The man who connects on a deeper level leaves behind an emotional echo that continues to breathe long after he's gone. It's the sentence you said that unexpectedly comes back to her while she's having a cup of coffee. It's the warmth of a hug that still seems to comfort her body the following morning. It's the anticipation and curiosity of not knowing exactly when she'll see you again that keeps her interest alive. The philosopher Erich Fromm, in his renowned work on the art of loving, argued that true love is not a transaction where favors or superficial acts of attention are exchanged. Instead, it is a state of inner presence sustained by maturity. When you're able to create that experience, distance stops being a threat and becomes your greatest ally. It's precisely in the time after the date that she begins to miss you, idealize your gestures, and realize that you've become someone different from everyone else. That's why the question you should ask yourself before going to bed is no longer the anxious one that torments insecure men. What do I need to do on the next date so she won't forget me? Or, what message should I send now to get her attention? That mindset only shows that you see the relationship as a machine that constantly needs coins inserted to keep it running. The question that truly changes your perspective and puts you back in control of your own value is much deeper. What feeling stays with her after spending time with me? That's where the path divides between those who beg for attention and those who inspire genuine connection. It isn't about planning the most expensive date or acting like some mysterious movie character to seem interesting. It's about the weight of your authenticity. It's about whether you were able to hold eye contact with confidence, whether you made her feel safe, heard, and mentally engaged. If you can make the experience of being with you feel like a refuge from the artificiality of the outside world, you won't have to chase her or stare at your phone every few minutes. The meaning of what you shared will continue working for you in her mind, leading her to seek you out for one simple but powerful reason. Her life feels better when you're part of it. For that impression to remain in her mind, the time you spend together has to be free from the need for approval. The most common mistake the average man makes is becoming a professional people pleaser during the date. He agrees with everything she says, copies her interests, avoids any disagreement to prevent conflict, and exhausts himself trying to prove that he's the nicest, most confident man on the planet. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche argued that nothing is more boring or less attractive to human beings than the complete absence of resistance. When you become predictable, you become invisible. A woman cannot develop a lasting emotional impression of you if, throughout your time together, you behaved like a mirror reflecting only what she wanted to see. Love needs contrast. It requires that you're able to express your own opinions confidently, laugh with healthy irony, set boundaries when necessary, and maintain the playful tension that gently pulls her out of her comfort zone. This doesn't mean being rude or emotionally distant, it means being genuine. When you can stand by your convictions without fearing that she might become upset, you naturally earn her respect. She senses that you're not trying to buy her affection with cheap niceness. Instead, she sees that you have a solid inner world, one she's welcome to explore, but one that doesn't depend on her approval to exist. This is what activates the mental processing that happens afterward. When she gets home, she isn't remembering yet another admirer who tried to win her over. She's remembering an authentic man who challenged her intellectually and emotionally, planting a question in her mind that won't be easy to shake. That inner strength is what separates superficial attraction from a connection that stands the test of time. When a woman is alone again in her own space, her intuition begins analyzing the details that went unnoticed during the conversation. The way you handled an awkward moment, the consistency between your words and your body language, or the calmness with which you responded when things didn't go as planned. If she senses that you were pretending in order to impress her, her mind quietly raises an internal alarm that immediately halts any emotional progress, even if the date seemed perfect on the surface. Humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers argued that genuine connection only happens when we allow ourselves to be seen as we truly are, with both our strengths and our flaws. If she senses that behind your actions is a confident man who doesn't need to hide his imperfections or inflate his ego, a space of complete emotional safety begins to emerge. It's within that refuge of authenticity that she realizes she can let her guard down and be herself, free from mass or social pressure. And it's precisely that feeling of freedom and peace that she begins to miss once you're no longer there. The memory of your company is no longer tied to the adrenaline of an exhausting game of seduction. Instead, it becomes associated with the deep comfort of having met someone genuine in a world full of appearances. That's when, in the quiet moments of her everyday routine, the initial physical attraction begins transforming into an invisible bond that draws her back to you. Not out of impulse, but because your emotional presence has become a meaningful part of her sense of well-being. That feeling of security isn't built through rehearsed speeches or exaggerated promises about the future. It's built through consistency in the small details, the ones that happen beneath the surface and that many men completely overlook. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, while exploring human passions, argued that a person's character is revealed not in life's greatest battles, but in the way they handle the smallest everyday situations. When you're with her, the way you treat the waiter, the attention you give when she tells you about a problem at work, or the way you respect her pace without pressuring her to give you something in return, those are the threads that truly shape her perception of you. A desperate man chases quick impact, the grand gesture that will amaze her in an instant. A mature man understands that trust is a plant that grows slowly. If she notices even a small crack between the image you're trying to sell and the way you actually behave, the process of falling in love immediately comes to a halt. The female mind is remarkably sensitive to inconsistency. On the other hand, when your behavior is natural, consistently kind, and steady in its direction, she begins to experience a sense of order amid the usual chaos of her interactions with other men. She doesn't have to decode hidden motives or constantly guess what you're really thinking. She knows exactly where she stands. That clarity creates such deep mental peace that, after you leave and she returns to the fast-paced, impersonal rhythm of everyday life, the memory of your presence becomes like a magnet. Her mind naturally returns to you, searching for that sense of calm, that stability that only you were able to give her without ever needing to raise your voice. The real danger appears when a man notices that she's beginning to show genuine interest and, out of insecurity, ends up sabotaging the entire process. It's a destructive pattern that repeats itself over and over again. The moment she opens up even a little, he becomes emotionally overwhelmed. He starts demanding explanations, wants to know who she's talking to, or suddenly becomes excessively available, completely destroying the healthy space that time apart creates. You need to understand that for many women, falling in love moves in waves. There are moments of great closeness, followed by periods of withdrawal, when she needs some distance to process what she's feeling. Analytical psychologist Eric Newman referred to this as the dynamic of psychological assimilation. The soul needs to retreat into the solitude of its own inner desert, to transform lived experiences into a lasting emotional bond. If, the moment she steps back to catch her breath, you respond with complaints, missed calls, or overwhelming attention, you disrupt the natural rhythm of the relationship. What was once a pleasant echo in her mind suddenly becomes an unbearable source of pressure. Your ability to remain calm, grounded, and confident during her moments of silence is the ultimate test that can shape the future of the relationship. When she sees that your sense of self-worth doesn't collapse simply because she takes a few hours to reply to a message, she realizes she's not dealing with a boy searching for a mother, but with a complete man who knows how to stand on his own. That realization eases her doubts and allows her to return to you with the confidence that she has found solid ground where she can finally put down roots. For that return to become lasting, it's essential to understand that the human mind doesn't fall in love with perfection, it falls in love with uniqueness. The philosopher Baruch Spinoza explained that desire is nothing more than the very essence of a human being, understood as the force that moves us to act because of something that affects us. Applied to modern relationships, this means she won't become emotionally attached because you possess a checklist of generic qualities. She'll remember you because of the unique details of your personality that stay with her long after you've gone. The average man's biggest mistake is blending into the crowd. He wears the same fashionable clothes, talks about the same subjects, and adopts a neutral personality because he's afraid of being judged. By doing that, he becomes completely interchangeable. If any other man can offer her exactly the same experience, her mind has no compelling reason to return to thoughts of you during her quiet moments alone. What truly sparks deeper emotional attachment is the rarity of your authenticity. It's your particular sense of humor, the passion with which you talk about your personal goals, or the uniquely personal way you see the world without apologizing for who you are. When you leave an impression unlike anyone else's, your absence begins to carry real weight. Comparing you with her everyday interactions becomes inevitable, and that's when your presence starts to stand out. Not because you're actively competing with anyone else, but because your emotional echo is the only one with its own distinct and recognizable sound amid all the noise. That unique impression becomes even more powerful when you're able to create a sense of mystery through emotional restraint. In an age of constant connectivity, where people overshare every detail of their private lives on social media and reveal all of their feelings within minutes, reserve has become one of the rarest and most magnetic qualities a person can have. Analytical psychologist James Hillman associated the human soul with the mystery of unexplored territories. What is given away completely and effortlessly loses its psychological value almost immediately because it no longer requires discovery or exploration. If, during your first few interactions, you tell a woman your entire life story, your past traumas, your exact future plans, and how desperately you want to find a relationship, you instantly destroy the sense of intrigue. You take away one of the greatest pleasures of attraction, the opportunity for her mind to gradually discover who you are. The art of inspiring love lies in revealing only the tip of the iceberg, allowing her to sense that beneath your calm surface lies tremendous depth that can only be discovered over time. When you say goodbye leaving a few questions unanswered, while showing that you have a rich and fulfilling life that doesn't revolve entirely around her, you create an irresistible mental pull. As she returns to her daily routine, she won't simply remember what the two of you did together. She'll spend hours imagining everything you have yet to reveal, turning curiosity into a quiet fascination that only settles when she's with you again. That silent fascination is the force that transforms passing interest into genuine emotional commitment, an invisible power that works through distance and completely reshapes the foundation of the connection. By this point, the balance of the relationship has quietly shifted, even though the change may be almost impossible to notice on the surface. The man who understands this deeper dynamic stops chasing. He stops sending desperate messages and stops trying to control the outcome, because he realizes that the connection no longer depends on constant physical effort, but on the emotional gravity he has created in her mind. The philosopher and psychologist William James argued that the deepest impression we leave on others is not measured by the immediate impact of our words, but by the quality of the attention we gave them and the lasting place we occupy in their awareness when we're no longer present. When a woman experiences this kind of connection, her behavior changes naturally and effortlessly. Delayed or distant replies become genuine initiative. Routine excuses become clear invitations to see each other, and silence stops feeling like an abyss of uncertainty, becoming instead a bridge of anticipation. You're no longer the confused man who spends the night wondering what she's thinking when she's alone, or whether she's losing interest. Now she's the one who catches herself smiling at her phone in the middle of her day, replaying one of your conversations, or waiting for the perfect moment to share some small, seemingly insignificant detail about her day with you. At that point, influence is no longer about manipulation, tricks, or cheap seduction techniques. It becomes a dance in which your greatest attraction isn't what you do to keep her from leaving, but the peace, respect, and unwavering stability she experiences within herself when she chooses, of her own free will, to come back to you. At the end of this long journey of discovery, we arrive at what is presented as the central insight about human behavior, a truth that can be expressed in a single sentence. A woman doesn't fall in love only because of what she experiences with you, but because of what she continues to feel after you've gone. Falling in love has never been a loud event created by applause, luxury, or fireworks during a perfect date. It's an underground current, a quiet accumulation of emotional impressions, memories, resolved doubts, and growing certainty that gradually settles into her mind during the ordinary hours of solitude and everyday life. When you replace the anxious question, "What do I need to do now to make her like me?" with the mature question, "What impression and what feeling do I leave with her when I walk away?" you stop being an actor searching for approval and become a genuine man who naturally inspires lasting respect. You finally learn to understand the invisible power of absence, to move through silence with the calmness and confidence of someone who knows that his value doesn't disappear when the phone screen goes dark or the door closes behind him. From this day forward, you no longer need to monitor every step, weigh every word as if you're walking on eggshells, or beg for constant validation that keeps you trapped in the present moment. Allow time to do its quiet work. Respect the space where genuine interest matures at its own pace, and become that place of authenticity where another person can feel truly at peace.